Hi, so this is video one of our character walk cycle, and in this video, we're going to go over how to design the proportions of your character and use those proportions to create the first step. So every walk cycle is two steps, right, left. But in order to create the full walk cycle, we will just duplicate and switch the arm and leg positions to essentially reverse the first step. So this is only 4 frames. You can see I have the framing right now. The settings are only spaced to 2 frames a second, just to give me a sense of the timing right now of this walk cycle. But the most important thing is that the walk cycle truly is reading in the 4 poses, which we will go over in a second, and that on all of those frames, it really maintains the proportions and the style of this character. So you are going to be working over an armature. It's very simple that shows basic human proportions. And your job is to turn those proportions or work with those to turn them into your character. The closer you stay to the armature, the easier this process will be. But I would like to challenge you guys, like I did, to really change it into the kind of characters that you like to draw. As long as you stay with a relatively simple constructivist character, it's a really great way to animate relatively quickly. So that's also what I would recommend. This is a constructivist character again because it's made of simple basic forms that combine all together. All right, we're going to go into another document so I can show you the setup. And to start this animation, you will be working in a template that I provide for you. We will airdrop this to your iPad that you're working on. So first, I want to just go over the main 4 poses that you find in one step of a walk cycle. So you will see these duplicated on the other side, but we are just going to work on drawing the first 4. So the first position in a walk cycle is called the contact, and it's called the contact because it's the first time that foot that's taking the step is contacting the ground. And this, you can notice, it's characterized by the foot being in an upward position where the back part of the foot is what's touching the ground. Okay, the next position is the down position. And what I want you to notice, I'm going to flip through both of these for a second. The down position is called down because the whole foot is now hitting the ground. And it's the lowest position in the walk cycle. So you can notice the full body, the torso and the head are both coming down, lowest in this entire cycle. The arms are also at their widest swing. So that's what really characterizes a down position. The passing position is when the body is almost upright, just slightly leaning forward. But this position is when one foot is just about to pass. And we're not going to do a lot with this position in this walk cycle, but I want you to know this is the key position in any walk cycle. To get different types of character walks, like a sad walk or a funny walk or a tiptoe, these are the typical artistic license. This is the pose that you end up changing the most. We are not going to because that is much higher level stuff, but I want you to know that this position you can really change what that pose looks like to create different types of walks in the end. All right, and the last position is up, and it's up for a couple reasons. It's mostly up because this is the highest position in the walk cycle, and this is right before the next contact. So then it would come back here. So it always goes contact, down, passing up, contact, down, passing up. Okay, so it would repeat that on the other side. And you can see in this armature that it has the back side shaded in graphically so you can tell which arm and which leg is in the front and what's behind. So I will show you the second contact. We are not going to draw this, but I want you to be able to see the difference. So the shading is going to change on the other side. You do not have to shade your walk cycle, but you will need to turn them in the end and flip them. So this is what I'm considering a flip. All right, now you will probably notice that the template seems just a little complicated, and it is that way for a reason. One downside to animating in Procreate is that you can't have multiple layers of animation. So that means we have to make the layers palette work for us. The upside to working in Procreate to do a walk cycle is it's very accurate to draw in, to do high levels of detail. So, there's pros and cons to kind of every program. All right, so the first thing is you will see the contact position 1, and in your document, you will see all of the templates are locked. So it says contact 1, down 1, passing 1, and up 1. And the 1 stand for the first step. And that's what we're going to be working on in this document. So I'm going to keep these locked because these are just reference. I can turn them off if I don't want to see them. But you're never going to draw on these original layers. Where it says draw contact, draw 1, draw passing, and draw up 1, these are the 4 layers that you will be drawing on, so they are not locked. All right, the first thing we're going to do though is we are going to draw the character here. So I am going to make sure that I have my onion skinning on. So you can see multiple frames if you want, or you can just see a couple. I'm just going to put 3 on, just so I can see the size and the scale of my armature. I don't want to make this walk cycle too tiny, but I also want to make sure the character fits on the page. I would highly recommend using the 6B pencil because it just kind of forces you to not draw too detailed at first. And you're just going to draw in a constructive version of your character. So, I've drawn this character a number of times. I would recommend, if you had a character that was very successful in a previous piece, to possibly consider that for this portion of the animation. And even though my character has, quite a bit of detail in the legs, I have to start with the basics. So when I draw this character, I want to draw it in constructively, meaning just cylinders, just basic form. Doesn't really matter what pose you have, if it's a side or a 3/4, but you want to make sure it's one that your character is meant to be viewed in. So my characters, typically, I see them mostly in a 3/4. So this is a profile walk cycle, so I want to do something very similar to that. I wouldn't want to do like a frontal point of view for transferring that into a sidewalk cycle. So either a profile or a 3/4, a very strong 3/4 view like I have would be best. Okay, and then from here, then I can go back. I'm actually going to just, for you, that might be what you're going to animate. Like that would animate quite strongly. It has a nice sense of ease and flow. But what you could do, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lighten it a little bit. I have just a soft airbrush on. And now I'm going to go back in and do that second pass of drawing and just have the rest of the kind of buildup of the form in. Okay, so this is exactly the process for what we're going to be doing over here. Now, if you have a human character that's very similar to these proportions, you can pretty much stay with them, but I would kind of suggest to make them, a little bit your own. Like you could add clothing on here that kind of overlaps the form. You could add a skirt, or you could change things just a little bit. Like maybe my character has bigger feet. So you can really kind of stay with the skeleton itself, but my creature's really it has much different proportions than this, so I'm really just using that as a guide. I could turn the contact layer off, but I think it's kind of helpful to see the original pose. So what I'm doing is I'm just making a few kind of proportion lines, and I'm just going to notice where I'm going to have things start and stop. So my head actually is going to come down halfway to that torso for this first one. Okay, and then just like I did, I don't have all this joint work. Mine is a much more bendy character, unlike that little last one I just drew. So I'm going to draw in it with just cylinders to start with. And then I have to really look, okay, what proportionally is making sense and what isn't. I'm very honest with myself at this point. So one thing I have to do in general for my character, let me get this on a better, is I have to work on arranging the overlap now. So this leg sits on top of the tummy, and then the tummy sits on top of this leg. So now I'm just trying to establish a little overlap, and I was bringing the body down a little bit. I notice my head is a little bit too bulbous right here, so I'm also bringing that in. So I tend to take a lot of time, getting this position in. Now I want to do the arms. So the torso and the lower body always comes first in a walk cycle. And now I'm really looking, okay, what's the position of that arm? It's a C curve. So to simplify that, I'm going to block it in as a C curve. What's the position of this arm? It's actually going the opposite way. So that's how I help figure out what is going to be the main viewpoint of my character. One layer will probably not be enough. So what I'm going to do is, again, go to like a soft airbrush. Whoops, except I'm going to use an eraser. And just lighten my drawing so I can barely see it. And now I'm going to turn off my contact because I don't really want to view that anymore. And now I'm going to add in the rest of the detail in my character. So I have the horn. I'm going to make sure mine was a little bit too long. So I'm always trying to match everything to my other character on the side. And for this one, I notice I see the inside little pads on the feet, so I'm gonna, or on the hands, so I'm gonna keep that kind of consistent. I want to make sure I'm really honing the drawing at this point and not, I want to stay really close next to the lines when I need them. Adding that doubled sort of mushiness on the foot. All right, so that's drawing one. And then I'm just going to show the next one. I always kind of continue that same process. Oops, one thing I did that I did not mean to do is I have them on the same layer. So if you accidentally do that, I meant to draw this, I was supposed to draw this on the contact layer. So you want to keep everything really organized. So I'm going to just select this and I'm going to copy it. And I'm just going to move that off the side and I'm going to paste it on my contact layer. So everything should be on its layer. I'm going to keep this draw character layer right here. And then I'm also going to make sure that my new layer says draw contact 1 because that's my first step. So I have my main character on the draw character layer and I'm going to make this layer, I'm going to click it right here. And I'm going to make the main character the background so that doesn't move. Okay, I think there was one more portion. Okay, so that's good. So I have my character on the right and I have my contact on the left. So I'm ready to move on. So now I'm going to do my down. So when I do the down layer, I'm going to turn I like to turn kind of both of them on. Remember, you can change the settings so you can see more or less onion skin. And I'm going to change my onion skin opacity so it's very, very light. Okay, so you can kind of play with, do you want to see the character while you're drawing the other one? I think I'm going to try to I think I'm just going to turn it on for a second to get the idea of it, but really I'm going to reference this one. So I'm going to turn off my original contact layer now. All right, from here, I remember from the last time I drew this that I made sure it touched the very top of the head and that my head ended up going down about halfway to the torso. I'm going to unlock the down layer for a second and make it a little bit bigger so you can see. There we go. All right, so I'm following the same kind of structure that I did on the last one. So my head ended up coming halfway down the torso. And then the top of my character's head actually is starting right where the other one starts. So I just want to make sure everything is lining up the same way I started it in the other drawing. And my character has, get just the main form in. I remember when I drew in the torso that it came relatively down to the knees. And I'm going to check that because this is a 1 to, it's more like a 1.5 ratio. So this should be a 1 to 1.5 ratio. So that looks pretty good. So I think I'm ready to move on. Remember, when you do the arms and legs, you want to get the idea, let me turn this off for 1 second. You want to get the idea of what the arms and legs are doing. So if you have a constructive character, I don't have to necessarily draw on all those joints. I just want to get a sense of those curves and which way the C curves are headed. And that's going to help you create that more full walk cycle and really translate it into a constructivist character. So now I'm looking at, okay, where does my arm start? Turn this down just a little bit. There we go. So where does my arm start? It starts right where the chin is. And I'm going to make this go off the body. Where does this arm start? It starts just almost like a chin width down. Turn that the other way. And then I know I use this full space because my other character landed there. So I'm going to follow those 2 positions that I had the C curves in. And this one might come out a little bit more. That's okay. All right, once I'm there, I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing on all my drawings. I'm going to just lighten what I just did a little bit. And once you're ready to really finalize your character, once you have the down pose in, you can turn off that pose below it. Remember, I like to always keep, the reference layers locked. So down 1 and contact 1, those are my reference layers. And now I'm ready to draw on the rest of this little character. And while I'm doing that, I'm trying to see, hey, I think that character's head's a little bit thinner than the original one. So I'm just going to bring that out a little bit on the left. I got to add the horn in, trying to make sure the horn's the same size, making sure I still maintaining that same viewpoint. I think the glute, this guy's little back area comes out a little bit more. And I think the belly is much closer to the chin. So these little tiny adjustments are going to make a huge deal in the final drawing. This leg seems a little long to me, so I'm going to just cut it in a little bit. And this one I need to get in that final pose. So I think you'll get the idea from seeing both of those. So if I go back and forth between both my frames, I have 1, 2. And the nice thing about this, though, is any layer that is off will not be considered part of your frames for your animation. So that'll let you really get a sense of the preview. So for this step, I was really keeping under the settings on the animation panel, I'm keeping my frames per second only at 2, just so I can see the progression. And that's a really nice progression between the down and the up. So I think this is really where you need to be with the last 4 drawings. You will just continue this on the draw passing layer and the draw up layer. And that's it. This is one of the longer steps. Really take our time with it, okay? All right, take care, guys.